So a few years ago, I had a really travel-heavy year of my life, and during this year, I was encountering many strange situations and many strangers who were performing kind deeds voluntarily, not expecting return. But additionally, there was kind of this like subtext, this creeping subtext about good deeds going bad. And I would like to share a few of those encounters with you this evening. So encounter one, I'm in Busan, which is a city in South Korea, and I'm standing on a street corner with like a scrap piece of paper, and I'm terrible because I frequently don't prepare for where I need to go, and I'd drawn this like really shitty map and a few like scribbled notes about where I needed to be, and obviously it wasn't helping me at all, and I was really distressed and standing there. I'm sure it showed in my face because this man stopped going in the opposite direction where we would go. He stopped in his tracks and turned around and kind of gestured to me that he wanted to help me. Clearly there was a language barrier, at least spoken at this point. And I just kind of like showed him my scrap of paper, and he actually looked at it, and he seemed like he was understanding something, because he like started to smile and nod his head, and then he looked at me kind of like with this self-assurance and like, I've got it, and he gestures for me to follow him. And so we're walking down the street, and I'm starting to think at that point, like maybe he reads English better than he speaks, whatever, but he seems to know what he's doing. So I'm following him, and it's probably like a 5-minute walk, and I start to notice more and more neon signs, and then I'm starting to notice more like dark, dingy places, and then I'm starting to notice more blue, white, and red barbershop poles, and just so you know, in case you don't know, those poles, more often than signifying a barbershop in South Korea, actually signify like a sex massage parlor, and so I'm starting to notice more and more, and then he stops in the middle of the street and kind of just like does this really wide gesture, like, here we are, and like smiles at me, and in that moment, I finally realized this advice that I'd been given when I first arrived in Korea, which is that as like a kind of fair-haired, fair-skinned woman, you need to be aware of Korean men taking it that you're a Russian prostitute, and so because it's a thing that like there's a lot of Russian prostitutes in Korea, and so in that moment I noticed that he directed me to their red light district, thinking that that's where I need to be. So that was encounter one. Encounter two, I'm in Nashville. I'm in Nashville, and I'm boarding a midnight bus. Unfortunately, I had like a number of circumstances that caused me to be the absolute last person boarding the bus, and as I'm walking onto the bus, I'm not seeing any seats free. But then suddenly I see these like really smiley two people on that back 3-seater, you know, on like a Greyhound 3-seater near the bathroom. And they're like smiling at me, and they're pointing between them. They're like, here, come here. And I'm like, oh, that's so nice. They're so welcoming. Although the problem with this, and I really actually, I don't want to poke fun at all at these people, but it's a big part of the story, is the fact that the woman sitting near the window is very overweight, and the man sitting toward the aisle is like this bulked up military guy, still wearing like half of his uniform. And so they're big people who honestly could use that whole, like all of those 3 seats. Nonetheless, I accept, and I step over the man, and I sit in between them, and it's to the point where I need to decide that I'm going to tuck my shoulders behind them or in front of them and lean forward the entire time. And I sit between them, and I'm feeling really sorry for myself. I'm feeling really sorry for myself because it's a midnight bus, and as a part of my travel plans, I was supposed to sleep the entire way through. And it's just not an environment to sleep because I don't know if you've ever taken a Greyhound in the States, although it's different than in Canada. It's like rowdy, like it's like a party, and these people are all like hanging out over the seats and drinking booze out of brown bags and like yelling at each other and swearing. And I swear to you, the bus driver came overhead and he was like, "Don't you dare smoke in this bus." And then people were like, "Aha!" And somebody actually threw a hamburger wrapper at him. And I was like, "Where am I?" And then I was additionally distressed because we're sitting beside the bathroom, and every time somebody goes in and out of there, which was like every 30 seconds, there was like this smell wafting at me, which was this mix of like body odor and booze and barf, because people were barfing in there, and farts, and it was just awful. It was really uncomfortable, and so I was feeling really like sorry for myself, although they should all have felt sorry for themselves because we were all there. But the man beside me, military man, he's looking at me and he really clearly wants to make me feel better, and so he starts chatting me up, and he determines that I'm from Canada, and he determines that I'm on my way to St. Louis, and then he like pauses and looks down to my feet, and then looks up to my face, and I'm waiting for it, and he's like, "You shouldn't be going to St. Louis, you should be going to New York." I'm like, "Well, what do you mean?" It's like, "There are big shoes in New York," and I was like, "Thanks for the tip." Like, and then he started to go on about how his ex-girlfriend had big feet and he always went to New York for her to get her shoes. And I was like, thanks, but... So anyway, I was like trying to be thankful, but also trying to like stop conversation and closing my eyes, indicating I wanted to go to sleep. And then I feel a tap and I hear the words, "There are no black people in Canada." Which is obviously like a weird thing to hear, and I didn't actually even know how to defend that statement, but like I obviously opened my eyes and he was like, "Oh, got her," and like he decided, he went on about, well, first of all, when I did explain that there are black people in Canada, he still somehow determined that like black people in America are different. I don't want to get into all of that. But then he also, he proceeded to quiz me on the black people who I'd met in America, wanting to know their names, wanting to know what they did for a living, wanted to know like their general nature. And so that was like confusing and weird. And then he just kind of like went into this other like just explanation about the fact that like black people exist in America, and seemed to want me to like be familiar and be at ease. And then that's when he offered to be my first black friend in America, and then asked me in these words, and also like kind of like this like eyebrow thing. I knew he was getting at. He was like, "You ever had a black boyfriend in America?" Politely declined. It was soon enough, thank goodness, we rolled into a rest stop, and that's when I realized that like he had kind deeds to go around. And so this woman next to me, we hadn't heard from her all this time, and then she was like, I need to get out and have a cigarette. And I thought he, like normal people, would get out of the seat, and then I would get out of the seat and we would let her pass on her own. No. He pushed me back against the seat, and then he turned over, grabbing onto her bum, and like kind of like pulled and then pushed her out of the seat, all the while being like, "Oh." Not kidding. It was horrifying. And then even when he got her out, he was like, he like stood there and felt like he needed to like propel her out the door, so he kind of was like, "Whoa!" Like one last time. I was like, oh my god, everybody was obviously horrified, including her. Okay, encounter 3, last one. I'm in Calgary and I'm alone, and I'm alone for the day, and I thought I would go to like this area of town that I'd heard about that had like some pretty cool cafes I'd heard in bookstores. I just wanted to hang out. And now the problem with Calgary is that their downtown area is like a grid, and it's made up of these numbered streets. And basically, north to south is called a street, and east to west is called an avenue. To me, that's not like a distinguishing enough feature when I'm writing down directions for myself. And so soon enough, I was like walking along, but I was like walking along a provincial highway on one side on this path, and then on the other side like long grass and bushes like leading toward a creek. And I was like, this doesn't seem like it, but I just kept going. And but then other problem too, I have dairy problems, and for lunch I'd had a quesadilla, and it was not sitting well. And at this point I'm like well aware that I'm lost, but I'm like, good God, I need a bathroom. So I'm walking, and I'm like, fuck, there's no bathroom in sight. And so obviously like emergency kicks in, and I run down this hill. But like the hill is not, it's not that deep. Like essentially it's enough where I know that the cars driving past on the highway can't see me, but that anybody on the path above is gonna see me. So I'm like, okay, gotta do this quick. And I like, you know, drop my pants and gotta do it. Do my business, and I'm feeling really like satisfied with myself because like I felt like I'd just like done this really successfully. But my last step was to clean up, and so I grabbed for this tote bag that I had, and I was like, like note paper from this notebook, that'll be perfect. And so I reach into my tote bag, and I'm starting to rip out like note paper for myself, and suddenly I hear, hey, hey, and I look up, and at the top of the hill, there's a man there, and he's coming at me, asking me if I need help. I'm pilless, I'm like struggling in this long grass, and obviously I'm like shocked. I really don't want him to come, but I can't even like muster up the words to be like, do not come down here. And I'm also like not even smart enough in that moment. I'm so shocked that I don't even know to just like pull up my pants. So I'm just like, at me down the hill. Thank goodness he had this like some sort of walking partner with him, and she was of the right mind to be like, no, and like grabbed him up the hill and like took him out of my viewing range, and so I was really, really thankful for that. Anyhow, these are just like three of many encounters that happened that year, and at the end of that I was kind of thinking that okay, so like putting forth kind acts toward a stranger without expecting return, obviously that's like a virtuous thing. But I was thinking at that point that like perhaps there's another virtue in my mind that should be taken into consideration and perhaps go hand in hand with Good Samaritanism, which is to know when to stay the fuck out of other people's business. Thank you.